I have to tell you something, and the thing I have to tell you is that I suck at reading sheet music, and I always have. I can remember back, I don't know, it was 9 or 10, between the ages of like 9 and 13, I had to repeat entire like books of piano, like levels, because I would just hear the song and memorize the song, and I hadn't learned to read a note in like 3 years of piano lessons. So for some of us, sight reading is really challenging, and I wanted to tell you this because I think it's quite common. You're not alone if you're having a hard time with sight reading. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of give you some ideas for how I get through reading music. I totally fake it. So let's start with misconception number 1, and this is a big one. So many of us believe that in order to sight read or be a good sight reader, we have to read every single note that is appearing before our eyes on the page. That is simply not true. And I will tell you that when I'm sight reading, I'm actually really not identifying very many of the note names at all. So my biggest trick is I look at the music and I identify the first note, and you can use rhymes for this. I did this for years. So I'm gonna look at my music here. I've got a note on the treble clef. This song is called Riptide. We're using it as an example. And I'm gonna use my little rhyme. Face is for the spaces, so F-A. Okay, first note is A. Wonderful, I did some note reading. Now, I'm not going to read any of the other notes in that measure because I'm looking at the page going, huh, okay, well the first note is A, and then the next note is just the very next note after that because it's going to the line, and the next note's the very next note after that because it's going to the next space, and all of the notes in this measure are simply stepping up. So instead of thinking A, B, C, I'm going, not reading at all. Read the first note, guesstimated the rest. We get to the end of that measure. There's a tie there. It just means hold the note. You can ignore those lines if you want to. I get to the end of that measure where there's an E, and I see a note that is definitely not a step above, so I'm actually not reading that note either. I'm using the spatial difference to determine it. So I'm actually counting really quick in my head going, okay, line, space, line, line, space, line. It's this interval. So I didn't think, oh, that's an A. I just thought, I'm on E and I have to go this far. So 2 things, identify the patterns and identify the spaces between the notes. And I find that this is a much more efficient way to get through reading a piece of music. So now I've read 1 note, used my spatial recognition to get here, and oh, look at the next note, it's just 1 step down. And then, okay, it repeats, and then, oh, the next note is a skip down. And I'm golden, I'm cruising. So there's a little trick for you. There is no shame in that. And that's what I wanted to bring this in for, just a quick little review. You can get really good at practicing knowing what the notes are doing by just being aware of the lines and the spaces. Look, line, space, line, space. These notes are moving up 1 step at a time on the keyboard. Let's put another one here. And then let's, there. And then let's take away this guy and this guy, and look at this. They're not stepping anymore, they're skipping. Each of them skips. So if I read, hey, this is E, and then I can just know in my head, I'm gonna not play the next note after E, I'm gonna skip to the one beyond that. It looks like this on the piano. Skip, skip. I'm not reading the note names, I'm reading one, and I'm guessing the others. And another little thing that's really, really, really helped me is I've memorized what I call landmark notes. So like, I know that that's middle C. I know it. So if I see sheet music that has that, it's kind of like a little beacon, like, oh, yep, that's middle C. And I've also memorized that this is high C. So middle C, high C. And I've also memorized that this is low C, right? Dot, dot, that's where low C goes. That's kind of how I remember it. So kind of using those landmark notes also helps me to navigate my sheet music because when I see them, I've just memorized. I've done the work to at least memorize those ones so that I can kind of orientate myself based on that. The next thing, and this is the second really big misconception, is that you are not allowed to memorize if you're going to sight read. And I'm going to tell you right now that when I'm learning a new piece of music, especially when I'm working on a classical piece, I look at the first measure, I painstakingly slowly sight read my way through it, and I double check. I do read all the notes very slowly, make sure I have them all right. Then I use my kind of quick guesstimating work that we just talked about to kind of practice it a few times and work on both hands. And the goal is not so that I can sit down and read those notes every time. The goal is that I've read it right a couple times and it's now memorized. So that when I see it, I use some of the notes on the page as a cue, and then I just play because I've done the work to memorize it. And I used to feel really bad about that, like I was cheating. But I don't think that counts as cheating. Learn it correctly, slow it down and do the work, and then there's no shame in memorizing and using the sheet music as simply a guide to help you keep on track. So there's a couple little practical tips, a little look inside my crazy brain to show you my approach to sight reading, what I've done in order to make it possible for me. I'm still not fast at it. I don't know that I ever will be. I'm celebrating my strengths and being able to play by ear. But if you're wanting to sight read, I hope this is helpful for you. Comment below and let me know. I'd love to hear your story. Do you find sight reading easy? Do you find it challenging? Tell me about your journey. I'd love to hear it. Happy practicing. We'll see you around.